So when you were born, you were just this naked awareness without any beliefs, any conditioning. You didn't even have language. And that's the truth of who we are. We are that, uncolored, untouched. But we're given a name, and then that name is, even before you're born, your parents they've made up things about you already. So you've always got an identity before you're born, So we believe these. So these things are, you're invited to play almost this game of separation, that you're a separate person in the world and you've got this identity, and this identity is just made up of thoughts. So self-realization is a recognition of who you were before you were given this identity.
Welcome to a Broader Lens podcast. Collette, thank you for coming on. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Boo Boo. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. One of the reasons I wanted to ask you to come on, I was like, I got to get her, is because you talk a lot about self-realization.
Yeah.
And I actually had a guide through like spirit, if you want to call that. And he actually, come to find out, he brought yoga to the West, and his name was Yogananda, and he started Self-Realization Fellowship. So early on, I was exposed to that and to his teachings, and it really helped me shift and look at things in a broader level, especially with the religion and scriptures and stuff, what they were really trying to say for me.
Oh, wow.
So,
I didn't know that. I didn't know you had a guide.
Yeah.
Wow. And quite a good one too. Amazing.
Well, I didn't know who he was. It's like I wasn't raised with that stuff. And then I had something keep coming to me, keep trying to speak to me. And everywhere I'd go for a period of time, I would hear about this guy named Yogananda.
Oh.
And I felt guided for him my first few years, maybe a handful of years of my own
Beautiful.
Awakening process. So,
wow, amazing.
So one of my first questions is, what is self-realization for those who may not know?
Well, it's the recognition of the truth of who you are, because we tend to feel like with the mind, and we think the thoughts in our heads are us talking to us, and we believe all those thoughts, and those thoughts are actually our conditioning, our environmental conditioning. And we we believe them, and it's as if we're looking through to the world through a lens of all these beliefs, and we're not actually seeing the truth of actually what is happening. So we operate, and quite often they're subconscious, and we're not aware of these beliefs. We're not aware that we're coloring our world with these beliefs. So self-realization becomes a point, and everybody's different. I mean, I think yours was you did have self-realization, didn't you? But it was a complete dropping away of identity, I believe. You had a quick, whereas mine was a longer journey. So the self-realization is a recognition of your true nature, and it's, instead of being identified with the mind, you realize that your everyday, and I really want to get this for people, your everyday reality that you're looking from is the truth of who you are. But we look through this lens and we color it with the conditioning. So when you were born, you were just this naked awareness without any beliefs, any conditioning. You didn't even have language. And that's the truth of who we are. We are that, uncolored, untouched. But we're given a name, and then that name is, even before you're born, your parents they've made up things about you already. So you've always got an identity before you're born, So we believe these. So these things are, you're invited to play almost this game of separation, that you're a separate person in the world and you've got this identity, and this identity is just made up of thoughts. So self-realization is a recognition of who you were before you were given this identity. So for me, it was like, oh, I was told that this, my everyday reality of seeing, was Collette with all the things that came with it. But actually, it's just this. Prior to all of that, prior to the mind telling me the conditioning and offering me thoughts of separation, and that you've got to control your life, and you've got to seek approval, and everything's out there, and if you get everything sorted out there, then you'll feel better. Happiness is out there, security is out there. And actually, when you turn in on your true nature, you don't need anything. Obviously there's basic survival things you need, but all that we're looking from the outside world for happiness and to be loved, and we don't, you just feel whole and complete. So you don't need to control all of that. It can all dance. It's fine. Life still carries on, but you see it through a clearer lens. You don't see it filtered with conditioning. It's quite a long explanation.
No, that's perfect. I love it. You said something reminded me of one of Bruce Lee's quotes, and he says,
Yeah.
the poorer we are inwardly, the more we try to enrich our life outwardly."
Yeah.
And little by little, I started to work on my inner self and transcend and heal from some of the traumas and the wounds and the stuff that knocked me out of self, like you were saying, and let go of those wrong perceptions and those belief systems. And speaking of that, I like how you brought that up. I wanted to know a little bit, if you can tell us about your early life and your upbringing, and the beliefs and maybe religious system you may have been inherited or by your family, your environment.
Well, I grew up in a family where, working hard for a living was the motto. That was how everybody, that's what I was taught, that you've got to work really hard, and just, it's almost like survival. That's all. My parents had shops and they just constantly worked, really. My mother worked in the shops and my dad did. And then when I was old enough, I did, from a very young age. So I was stacking shelves, unpacking lorries, and then worked my way to working on the checkouts. So it was a family business. And then we weren't religious at all. I did go to a Church of England school at one point of my schooling. And I quite enjoyed it, really. I quite enjoyed being in the beautiful church and the singing, and there was a lovely feeling to be in the church. But I wasn't, my parents weren't religious. I wasn't brought up religious. So growing up, I had a fairly normal childhood. It was very much you do what we say. I was I was trained to be a good girl. I knew if I behaved, then all would be fine. So I was the third child, and my oldest sister, she was sort of the naughty one. She got into so much trouble. I just thought, it's not worth it. I'm not doing that. So I became the good girl. So that was like one of those filters, the good girl. If I do this, I'm loved. If I do that, so that was one of those first. So I'm not saying it wasn't a traumatic childhood, but filters that all that conditioning is there, no matter. If you do what we say, then we love you. That type of they were lovely parents, but it was quite strict. I was almost like the trophy. I was told that I wasn't wanted, which was a little bit traumatic. I don't think my mum realised, she said, "Oh, we never wanted you." She always tells the story of how they didn't want me. But when I arrived, everybody fell in love with me. And that became my thing, that I was sort of wheeled out as like the trophy daughter. Sorry, I've got my cat joining us. So that was another filter, you see. That was another thing another thing on my lens, another conditioning that I'm wheeled out to entertain everybody. I'm going to make everybody happy. So you just pick up all those things of, that's my thing in life. That's what I do. So it just carried on like that. I never didn't have anything. I mean, there's stuff, normal childhood stuff. Wanting to fit in. I'm trying to think. I didn't really have anything major in my childhood. But I did see that sort of. I did say how grace was playing out. And I remembered a story today, I've not told anybody actually, that when I was about 5, we were just doing a P lesson and we were dancing, and they put the music on and I just danced. I wasn't there when I danced. I knew that even at 5. And the teacher stopped the class and she said, "Oh, Collette, can you do that again?" And so they put the music on and I just did this dance. And I knew I wasn't doing it because I was thinking, well, I'm not doing this dance. So there was something moving in me. I wasn't doing it. It was quite an interesting dance. It was about a puppet dancing on a string. And I was doing these movements. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm not doing this. They're all just happening. So it is interesting how, life is moving you, that you, without that, when we let go of control, life just moves you. And I've had that all the way through my life, really. But that was the first, I just remembered that today. Oh, yes. So, so I can see where life, I had things where I would feel very expanded as a child. I'd lay in bed and I would feel myself much bigger than the physical body, I think, wow, how come I'm over there when I'm here? So there was a bit of that going on. And I also, so I'm sort of going into the spiritual thing, really, because I didn't have that much of a religious thing happening. I seem to have like a natural healing ability that people picked up on. And I wasn't really doing it. I was just blissed out. So I would train to do massage. And when I was massaging, I was just completely blissed out and loved it. And that's when people were praising me and saying, "Oh, you've got such healing hands." And I did go on to do some sort of, I was guided to do acupressure and all sorts of things that I'd never trained in. So it's sort of like, it was like spontaneous movement, and that is like what the child was. That was spontaneous movement that was happening when I was doing the dance, and this was spontaneously happening. I just knew how to do this acupressure. I knew where the meridians were. I just didn't know what they were, but I knew there were meridians. I sort of had some idea of what I was doing, but I very much felt I always just stepped to the side and this just happened. That was going on. And then my first thing into spirituality was in the newspaper. There was a review of some spiritual books, and I was just like, this is my thing. I was around 20 and I just, this is it. And that started my search of probably nearly 30 years. It just lit me up. I was like, that's it. That's my thing. I never really felt like I had a thing, but that was it. And it was quite a long search.
I love that, blissed out. I never heard that before. Blissed out. So you always had this like strong sense of intuition since a little kid.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't realize that's what it was really, but I have used it all along. I've got I'm quite kinesthetic. So with my friends, I always used to say to them, well, we'll just feel for the answer when they had an important question. And they were like, what? I was like, well, we just feel for it. We just drop into the body and we just ask the question from the body. Anyway, they would do it and we'd get quite good answers. So they were like, whenever we needed an important question, they'd say, can you do that thing where we go into the body and ask the question? And to me, I thought, well, I've always done that. So that was tapping. I see now it was tapping into intuition and using the bigger self, the true self, to get advice. I did become a model, and that was definitely divine will again. I wouldn't have chosen to do that, but I just It just happened, and I could see it happening. And I was thinking, is this just happening because I'm young and you just do stuff without thinking? Or is this just happening? And I look back and it was obviously, my purpose really. Um, so, yeah, so that was interesting. And I've always had this thing about being shy because my parents used to wheel me out in front of people. So it was quite an odd career to have if you're shy. But I always felt, again, it's so funny how these things thread together. I always felt that I wasn't modeling. I always felt that because people would say, "Oh, what's it like to be on the TV?" And I'm like, "I'm not on the TV." And they're like, "Well, you're on that advert." And I'd go, "Oh, yeah, but that's not me." I had a very strong sense it wasn't me doing all of that. It was just what was happening. I would just become whoever they wanted me to be. And I it wasn't me. So that sort of was why I was able to do it, even though I was quite shy.
You feel like you were an old soul? Because it seemed like, I mean, I don't know if you use that term, but it seems like you always had like this, you weren't as deeply seated with the identification of the mind and body, even early on, whether you knew that or not. That's what it seems like to me.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't aware of it, but looking back now, yeah.
Is there a difference from an awakening to self-realization?
Well, the awakening, for me, so everybody's journey is different, just like everybody's life's different. And awakening for me was those small things, a bit like seeing the books and go, "Oh, this is me." It's like you're just waking up to the idea. And then, so listening to somebody like Eckhart Tolle, the truth lands. So it's the intuition, but it's almost like, oh, yeah, I've got that. So there's a slight awakening, in the teachings that you learn. There's something there's a recognition and like, so that seemed to just it's almost as if it unfolds the awakening in my journey. So there was just these little things that just kept, like a piece of the jigsaw kept landing. Oh, okay. So that's that. Oh, and that's what they meant. That's what they've been talking about. I've heard that 3,000 times. Now I get it. So it's like things land when they're supposed to. So that was like a gradual awakening. But the self-realization is a recognition, is a step backwards, and the identity is seen to be false. I was misidentifying as Collette with all this stuff. And really, I've always been always been that intuition, always been that open, uncolored awareness. So, so that's the difference between, for me, one is a gradual awakening. You're waking up gradually, and the other one is the recognition of it. I guess maybe I'm probably still waking up. Recognize the true self, but the identity still wants to dance. Maybe the journey is still awakening. Maybe that's it. It's the whole journey.
Yeah, I love that. I'm looking at my own experiences, and I still have like awakenings happening. And it's beyond my control. It just happens organically. But I've had that self-realization moment where like that, but I still fall back into the ego identity. I don't know about you, but I slip back in it. Like I don't, but we're always aware, right? We're always aware. But the I self and me, I still experience that in a strong sense, but I don't. It's weird.
Okay, yeah. So you recognize it. So there is sort of two positions. So I can see how that would be. Like who you are, you've recognized who you are, but this is still dancing. And sometimes, so for me, what happened was, I was actually went in a group of about 20 people who'd self-realized as well, and we were all doing exactly the same thing. So it seems like you've recognized your true self. Okay. But this is still playing out. And there's some tickets so I call them tickets to suffer. I got this from David Bingham. And there's some tickets that are stickier than others. So it could be around relationships or I felt like people didn't like me. That was one of mine. Because I was seeking, that's the approval ticket. Basically, this is separation over here. It's the idea. The biggest ticket is the idea of separation. That's your number one ticket. If you've got that one, you've got all the others. So I see it as whenever there's a sticky ticket, it's just showing you where you still feel that you're separate. There's still some idea of separation hanging out. And it could be in relationships. It could be in, seeking approval. And for me, I did a lot of work prior to self-realization. I did the work by Byron Katie. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah, that really helped me. But I did that turnaround question. Well, the way I did it was I would ask the first question from the mind, because it's a push and pull. It's a trigger you've got. So whenever I had a trigger, I would ask the question from the mind, because that's who's, it's that first question. I don't really want to go too deep into it because some of the people might not know the work, but it's 4 questions. I'd ask the first one from the head, then I'd gradually drop into the body for that last one. That's the tricky question, because it's a turnaround question that people find quite hard to get. And I would ask it from that place that I'd always been accessing all my life, my true self, and not realizing. I'd ask it from there, and I'd find the truth. So I did I'm not saying all, but I did a lot of work prior to self-realization. So, and it was almost like a game. It's like, is there anything else that it wants to trigger me? Because I just wanted the truth. That's all I wanted all the way through. I just wanted the truth of who I am. And why have I got this push and pull? What is this? What is this thing where, so it's resistance to the present moment, basically, this push and pull on life. So whenever you get a trigger, you're resisting what's happening. And there's a reason you're resisting it. Because if somebody's angry and you don't have a problem with anger, that won't bother you. It's just somebody being angry. But if you've still got that ticket of separation, they shouldn't be angry. I don't want them to be it'll be that pushing them away, or judgment, or whatever it is. So that's showing you where you're separate. So I'd be like, great, something else. So I'd see it as a positive. And then when I did have my realization, I spoke to David Bingham, who's a spiritual teacher, and he said, I don't think you really will have a lot because you've done a lot of work already. And whether he has a way of seeing, I'm not sure. But it's pretty quiet, the lens of separation. It's pretty quiet. Sometimes I think, has my mind been talking today? Have I had any tickets? Sometimes I might see them. So it's understanding how your mind is offering you these tickets. Because once you get the idea that there's you're not the mind, and this is just a system of this conditioned thought. And so all it's doing is offering you what it's offered you before. And so once you've seen through these, so I did the work of Byron Katie, once you've had a look at the truth of these, they tend to quieten down. So that identity is you've got more space. So when they're offered up, you're like, oh, not that old ticket. I've looked at you before. I'm so not interested. So they just slide because there's nothing. They can't stick. So, and we sort of talk as if you get a ticket and you're on the roller coaster. You've got a ticket. That's the ride of separation, the push and pull of you're annoyed at somebody. Why are they doing this to me? You want to control your environment. You're upset that somebody else isn't doing what you want them to do. So funny when you see it. So you're on the roller coaster, and what seems to happen is you get these tickets to suffer, and you do the ride, and you come off and you go, oh, I fell asleep to that old program, So this is what this big group of people were doing. We were taking the rides, picking up the tickets, doing the rides, and then realizing afterwards we'd picked up a ticket. And what tends to happen is that you're on the ride, you're halfway through the ride, and you think, oh, I picked up a ticket. So you've still got to play out the ride, but halfway you're there looking at it thinking, oh my God, I'm still saying the old things I used to say. I'm still on the ride, but I'm awake on the ride. Oh my God. And then, and then the next time you get a ticket, the same ticket, you're like, no, 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 I'm not playing that game. I've been on that ride 1,000 times. I'm not picking it up. So that seems to be, it exhausts this system. But it's just if you can get that idea that it's not you, the mind is not who you are, because you can observe the mind. So what's observing the mind? And yes, there is a pull. So I see it as a narrowing of focus, and you're pulled into that game of separation, and then you're looking at life through the lens. But when your focus is open and you're rested back and you're relaxed, you just see it all playing out, and you're like, wow, I'm not picking up that ticket. It's just, this is sort of seated in your true self. And for me, I went backwards and forwards, and then it just, one day I was like, oh, I never leave. Oh my God. Oh, I never leave. I never leave. I'm here all the time. And but the truth is, you actually never leave this. We are this. You can't leave it, but it feels like you do. So actually, even when you're on a roller coaster, even when you've got a busy mind, even when you're doing your old pattern behavior, it's always this, because there is only this. It's such a funny game, because there isn't this and that. That would be duality. That would be two things, you would say. So it's actually only ever this, just playing that game of separation. So you play it wide awake or you play it asleep.
Yeah, there's an old rap song, it's called My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard Muji, and you met Muji. I heard Muji.
Yeah,
I heard you met Muji,
yeah.
and I heard him once say, and it like really it had a little shift in me. He says, if you're suffering from thought, is because you believe you are thought.
Yeah, it's lovely when those truth bombs hit. They just land, and you're like, oh my goodness, how did I not see that? Yeah,
and that's how you know it's truth, because it like hits you in a very
lands.
gentle and shifting way.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
there's some
any sense.
space. Feels like there's more space in the body. That's just a landing, and then a relaxation, because that you've seen through that ticket. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I heard Eckhart Tolle bring up the word heaven, and he says the word heaven means spaciousness. And I've also heard a Unity teacher in the 60s, one of his books, he talks about the same thing. His name was Eric Butterworth. But and that makes sense. It became alive because when I start to meditate or really try to use principles and work on myself, do inner work, I start to separate myself from my thoughts and my emotions. And as I separate and I experience that spaciousness, it's that conscious awareness that starts to, I start to remember who I really am. And for me, that maybe we can say is heaven, even though that conception has been misunderstood and used wrongly in so many different ways in the religious world. But that made a lot of sense to me. I suffer a lot less. I find myself, if I do suffer, I suffer a lot less. And I think what principles did for me, and I've said this before, when you learn how to suffer, you suffer much less. And a lot of the manufactured fears that I once had are no longer, and I still have that suffering. I still have stuff to work on. Like I was telling you, I slip in and out of it. It's weird. It's like I'm between two doors or something. So I still got some ways to go.
I'd love to do a one-to-one with you if you like.
Sure.
Because sometimes it can just be it'll just be conditioned thought that's telling you you're not there yet, that you've still got work to do, that you've still got, they're all tickets to suffer. We just don't see them. We just believe them. Not there, you already are it. Everybody is. So that's what I'm saying. When I was that young child and I did that dance, it was just life expressing. So I think we all are it. It's not like you get it. It's not something to get. I think a lot of people are on this spiritual search and looking out towards the world to find themselves. It's a turning inwards. You already are it. So anything in that direction is a step away from who you are. So for me, it's that resting back and that opening up. So yes, there is, there can be work to do, but actually that is all the game of waking up and falling asleep. This is always here. This is who we all are. This is our truth. I'm no different to anybody else. We're all just this We're all just awareness. We're all awake, alert, awake, aware. And then it's the movement out of here that then starts the game of separation. So I'm not quite there yet. Well, I've still got some inner work to do. You've just stepped into the game of waking up and falling asleep, because we're all awake. We're all awake. We're all this. And it would be wrong of me to say people have got lots to do, because some people just wake up and that's it. It completely drops. The whole identity drops. So there's the potential for anybody, no matter. And sometimes the more suffering you have, the quicker it is. Like Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie, both of those people were extreme sufferers, and and they just couldn't cope any longer. So and I think for people out there that actually, it's not some exclusive club. We already are this. It's just we're believing in that game of separation. We're believing that there's paths to get here. There's stuff to do. Yes, it's the journey of waking up, but actually we already are all just this, just our true nature. Just, we were those when we were born. We were just awake, aware. We didn't know language. We were just this. And that's what we all are. So it's the turning in, it's the seeking outwards. It's that constantly just turning in, where the meditation is good. It's already here. So what is this? What's all we've actually got, that everybody's got, is the present moment. We've all got that. So there is only the present moment always. So later, it's going to be the present moment. It's with you wherever you go. It's always the present moment. It's never anything else. Always the present moment. And what we've got in that present moment, everybody's got, is that we can just look at our direct experience, the truth of what we know. But it does take a little bit of dropping out of the head, because the head will offer us the conditioned thoughts. So, if we can just drop into the body and open up that focus, that's where we find that what we've got is this present moment, and what we've got is our direct experience in this present moment. So that's your truth. That's it. That's it. And we've all got that. We've all got access to that. Yes, the mind pulls us out. Well, it feels like we get pulled out. It doesn't actually pull us out. We can't leave this. It goes with us, but it feels like we get pulled out. So I completely understand that people are suffering and I can't get there. But those are all tickets of separation. And this is our true nature. And this is our truth. And we've all got access to that.
Did you start laughing when you first experienced that?
Oh, the self-realization. Mm-hmm. I was shocked that I'd believed it. I was like, oh, I can't believe them. I can't believe they called this Collette, and I believe that. I believe that this was called Collette, my true nature, just my everyday looking, seeing reality was called Collette, and all the other stuff that came with that, the shy girl, the good girl, that all the conditioning went on top of that, and it was all believed in. And this is the naked baby, is the pristine, uncolored, just alert, awake awareness that everybody is, that we all share. We're just appearing as individuals. Yeah, prior.
Yeah.
Prior to that. Yeah. So it's as if there's this game of separation and the waking up and the falling asleep and the journey to awakening, but it's all played by there is only this. It's all just that alert, awake awareness. That's all there is. And this is the dance of life.
I remember one time driving and I was playing that song, What If God Was One of Us? And all of a sudden I was no longer part of the body was not me. The mind wasn't me. And I felt this glowing sensation of peace rushed from my legs, from my feet to my beyond my hip. I don't know how to describe it. I'll be like, it's kind of like me trying to tell someone how does describing how orange juice tastes if they never tasted orange juice. It kind of doesn't make sense until you actually taste that. And I just had these tears come down, and I realized that this is not who I am. I am one with the all, the source or awareness. I am awareness. I am consciousness. And for religious people, they may say, I am God, which may be very blasphemous to say in religion.
Well, yeah,
that I am God.
if you're that separate identity, but actually we all are. So it's only if it's the identity, the ego identity that says, I am God, because that's an individual mind-made self. This is everybody. So we all are life. I mean, I call it life. We all are life.
Yeah, it's something the ego can't comprehend, right?
No, because it's prior to the ego. It was that baby it was prior. That's afterwards. That's thought. That's language. That's, it's almost like you wake up in the morning as that little bit of space before you remember who you're supposed to be. And it just almost gets built in that split second, the identity. I mean, I don't have that now, but I remember waking up and thinking, okay, there's a few split seconds, or I don't know how much time before you remember what you've got to do and who you are and all your troubles and all the things that are. It's like it goes, it's there, ready to pick it up, put it on, and off we go. But yeah, it doesn't happen anymore. I mean, there's still things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan Watts once said, God is what everyone doesn't admit to being, yet everyone really is.
Oh, beautiful.
And I guess my next question is, what would you describe what the religious people call God? Or do you not even mess with that word anymore?
Yeah, I don't go there. I mean, what do I know?
Yeah.
I'd have to pick up a separate person and think about construct an idea. I mean, that's not my truth. All I know is this, And I got two phrases. I want to remember them now. One was, "You know nothing." I know nothing was the first phrase. When I first self-realized, I know nothing, and no agenda. I sort of seem to have got those two phrases. So, and it's true. I know nothing. From here, I just am. I have to step out of here and start. Whereas, yes, I can access. It seems as if there's a natural intelligence, universal intelligence here. So I'm not thinking about what I'm saying; it's just coming out. And I seem to be able to. I've always had that. I always have been able to help people, give them advice throughout my life, and that wasn't me doing it. I knew it wasn't me. I get an inclination. Oh, here we go. They're going to ask me something, and they'd ask me a question. So I'd just think, right, I need to open up now. I need to and then just allow whatever wants to come through for them. So this was sort of happening through my life. And I'd just get a little bit of an intuition of that it was about to happen. So I, as the Collette identity, separate person, know nothing. I have to construct ideas about what I learned, because all of that in the world of gathered knowledge of somebody else said, or I just don't play in that world really, because I have to really pick up the mind and look for something to say to sound, I don't know what, to get approval. All those tickets are suffer approval, or I'm better than you, or I've got something to say, and look at me, aren't I interesting? I'm just like, I know nothing. And then the other one was no agenda. So like coming on here, there's no agenda. Let's just see what's going to happen. It's lovely if we can help people. I mean, that seems to be, I get very much the sense that life cares about life. So that's sort of where I feel like I'm coming from at this point, because I wouldn't have really done any of this. I just thought I was going to wake up and float around. And actually, the self-realization and your life doesn't stop. Your life doesn't suddenly become all twinkly and amazing. It's the same, because life is ever changing. You're going to get flat tires. You're going to have people die. You're going to have people be born. It's just constantly changing. That is the world of ever changing. But you just play it from here. So you don't push and pull on all the things. It's because the mind doesn't narrate the story anymore. Oh, that's awful, that happened. It doesn't do that because they're not using it. So things happen, and it is just what's happening, constantly just what's happening. So your life doesn't change. It doesn't miraculously get amazing, but you don't suffer it. So, you just don't have that narrator of how that's good, that's bad, you want that, you don't want that. Just don't have that anymore. And it's just so freeing, because it's exhausting to play, to be with that mind. So I completely understand how people feel, because I was, suffering the mind and what it was telling me.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of the labels dropped for me in playing the little game of, Eckhart Tolle says, "What drives the world no longer drives me," and I don't play that game anymore of like in politics, religion, the us against them. It's just like you're watching that, and it's like unnecessary for me
Everybody's the
anymore.
same. They're all the same, and
Yeah,
everybody's awake. It's just some people are believing they're separate. That's all. Everybody is awake. Everybody's the same. Everybody's awake. Some people just believing they're separate innocently. And what comes with that is that push and pull, is that I'm right, you're wrong, the opposition, that all of that is just that one big ticket to suffer, because you feel like you're separate, and then it's survival mode, and the main things that come with that feeling of separation, which is suffering.
I got sober in 2009 after my suffering. I woke up and I started to create change, learned how to live on a spiritual basis, be more mindful, and start to develop awareness, right? But as I went into these 12-step rooms, a lot of times they go around these meetings and they'll say, "I am an alcoholic."
Yeah, I've
Well,
always wondered about that.
yeah, I always felt like so little by little I started to detach from that, because I felt like it was unhealthy for me to continue to identify as that, because it's
Yeah,
going to put me to sleep. And it did
yeah.
at one point. So I
We're
let
just
go of that.
reinforcing that belief. And I'm not saying it's not a good program, and it does help a lot of people, but I
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
had that thought. Well, hang on a minute, you're just reinforcing. Just keep the identification going of this
Reminding.
person. Yeah, over and over again. I mean, okay, so going to my intuition here, seems to be coming through that there's some value in it at the beginning, that of somebody to be able to admit it. I've nothing to, I've never been on this program or anything, but
Yeah.
there seems to be that there is value in it at the beginning, so that you can admit that, and to almost like lay your cards on the table and say, look, this is me, this is what I've done, I don't want to do this anymore. But then it seems like to keep remembering, keep reminding yourself of, wouldn't from where I am, wouldn't be helpful. I'm not saying all the other things that they do. I don't know the program, so I can't really comment in it, but that's what came through.
Yeah, I'm talking from a place of like kind of understanding and really looking and seeing what's healthy and what's not, and it became a period of time where that's not healthy. Just because a collective is doing that doesn't mean I have to do that to continue on, and I don't tell people don't do that. It's not right. But for me, it's not healthy to remind myself of the false self.
That's your truth. You see, you're seeing your truth, which is guiding you to say, no, that's not right for me now. That's, yeah. That's all I have ever used as a guiding light, really. What's my truth? What rings true for me?
Yeah, and then 12-step rooms, in the 12-step rooms in the meetings, you'll hear "To thy own self be true." So I had to really utilize that, and at first it was really hard, and it still is at times. And I'm learning. I feel like there's another process I'm moving through right now. Um, and who cares what people think in a healthy way, because it's been rough, trying to expand. So I had to let go of the collective as well, or the belief systems, and and say thank you. It helped me, and it's no longer
Yeah. Yeah. No longer
important for
serving
me
me.
anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
serving me.
Yeah.
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 I was going to ask you a quick question. Non-duality.
I mean, what is that?
No, if it may be a new term for some people.
I think it's been used quite a lot, so it means different things to different people, I'm guessing. Um, for me, it's that, my realization is that there is only this, that we're all this. When I look, I can't see the separation between somebody. So that's that, not two. And there's not two things here. There's just one source appearing as many, so we were appearing as individuals, but the source of these individuals is the same source. So it's dancing. Life is dancing as the many things, but actually it's just life dancing. So that's where the oneness. I mean, you could just call it oneness, But I think it's it was like not two is it's all language, and actually as soon as we use language, it's dualistic anyway. So it's actually we're stepping away from this oneness as soon as we use language. So I'm not an authority on non-duality really, but I do. For my experience is that we are all one. There is only this, and we're all this, and it's so freeing.
I like using the word seeking to some of my friends that are into the non-duality movement, because sometimes that's a bad word for some people, but I always say, yeah, I love to be a seeker. Meaning, like, I want to seek, like, what's more, was there really an Atlantis? What was Egypt really like? And just seeking more information and more knowledge.
Yeah, because we're all different expressions of the same thing. So if that's your natural expression, then that's great. That's sorry, I've got a cat. That's brilliant. What?
I love cats.
So I can see that when you were talking, you were really lit up about it. So for me, that's your true expression. What seems to happen when you feel like you just mentioned earlier, that you don't really care about what people think, because you're dropping that conditioning. So then you can be your true expression. Life wants to express through us, but we limit ourselves with this conditioning of we can't do this, we must do that. We clamp ourselves down and we place more. But actually, when we realize we're not all that conditioning, life can just express through you in the way it wants to. So yeah, I can see the excitement, and that's it's quite cute to watch. When you see somebody's excited about something. But I actually didn't realize I was a seeker, even though I'd been seeking for 20-something years. I remember afterwards going, was I a seeker? Maybe I was blind to it, but I was obviously seeking the truth. But yeah, I was definitely a seeker.
For someone that's caught up in the busy world, their busy mind, the Buddhists, they may call it the monkey mind. And it almost seems impossible to comprehend what you're saying, because everyone's so worried about how am I going to pay this bill? I got to do this tomorrow. I might get fired, or how am I going to pay this gas? Yeah, survival mode. Like, what kind of advice would you give people just to go back to their true essence?
Yeah, because going back to the true essence will give them a break from that. It doesn't make all of that go away. It doesn't make your bills all paid. But what it does is you don't keep chewing on those thoughts about it. So the facts are that's all there. That's needs to be dealt with. But you don't keep picking it up every 5 minutes and worrying about it, because that is not serving you, is it? It's just making you more stressed and more stressed. And then you get further into the game of separation. Then you're angry, and then you lash out at somebody. It just gets worse and worse. For me, what I could offer is this sort of learning how to drop out of the head, because it's we feel like we're located in our heads, And, if you feel like you're there and that's where your mind is, then it's, it does feel like it's very, very intense and closed down, and you're trapped in your head. So I would offer for people to just be open to the idea of maybe opening up that lens that feels closed down. So just open to the idea of opening up this lens and thinking, okay, well, let's have a little, that doesn't seem to be serving me. Let's have a look. What are my options? What's actually here now in this moment? And I would offer just to sort of lean back, because that whole seeking and wanting to control is a forward movement out to the ever-changing world. So I would offer the possibility of opening up the lens and feel that you're more seated at the back of your body, and then that you could potentially just drop down into the body, maybe connect to the breath, and then drop further, maybe to the seat that you're in, or the seat of you, where you're sat. And just sort of allow yourself to be just for a few moments. Don't worry, that's all still there. But we just don't need to pick it up, just for a few moments. And, that dropping down into the body, and just allowing ourselves to be with what is. We're just dropping the resistance to what is for a few moments. We're just allowing what's happening to just happen. Just let it be just for a few moments. And it's like giving yourself a break from it all. And then there's that sort of more like you're sensing with your entire body rather than trapped in this tiny, tiny mind. We're open. And actually, it's quite nice to just go to the area inside your body, and there's an awareness of an inside of the body. And then we can maybe go to the outside of the body, and there's some sort of an awareness of the outside of the body. And then it's to look, can you sense? So we're not filling it in with the mind, but we're just having a little look in our direct experience from this open awareness. Can you feel where the inside and the outside meet? We're just looking for the truth. It's an experience rather than the mind filling in, well, yes, there's clothes and them. It's just, we're just leaving that for a few moments, and we're looking in this very present moment in our direct experience. And I'll ask you, Boo Boo, can you feel some sense of an inside of the body, and then there's some sense of the outside of the body? Can you feel where the inside and the outside meet?
Right now, to be honest, I just feel myself like if I'm glowing inside of me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's a really good sensation of peace right now just by your words. And that's what I'm feeling.
So I'd venture a little bit more dropping out of the head, just because you were describing what was happening there, which is fine, and it was beautiful. But I'm just thinking we could just go a little bit more down into your direct experience, into the body. And then, is there a boundary between the inside and the outside without the mind commentating? Can you find a boundary between the inside and the outside? Is there somewhere where the inside and outside meet in your direct experience?
I just feel like nothing. I feel like that sensation, that glowing sensation in my stomach. I really don't feel like the body or the mind right now.
No, we can't find a boundary when we look. I mean, when we look here, yes, when we're because that's our true nature, is just this. We're not the body, we're prior to the body. We're this and the body. So when we look in our direct experience, we can't find we can't find we can't find we can't find where they meet. And then we look and like, well, do we stop at the walls? Is there a sense of you stopping at the walls? Or do you just keep on going? Is that our direct experience, is that we're just an open sea of awareness, but we've been believing we're these bodies.
And
I'm not saying there's not a physical body. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm not denying that. But actually, when we look in our direct experience, I don't mean look here, I mean feel into, sense. We're actually just, we can't find ourselves. We're just.
We are. Yeah.
Yeah, we just are.
Yeah, it was weird. I had no identification with the body when you were doing that.
Yeah.
And I felt a little glow in my stomach, my belly area. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's no mind where you're stressed. It's like you went home.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, exactly. You're home. We never left, but it felt like we left. This is always here. It's so comforting to know that this is always here, even with a busy mind. This is always here. And this is where I would do the self-inquiry from. So you could even ask, we've come a little bit more up into our heads now and we've speeded up, but we could have asked, where is the mind? Can you find the mind? When you look in your direct experience, it's like, hang on a minute, where is that mind that's been ruling the show, that's been center stage my entire life? Where is it? Your direct experience, you can't find it. So it's all imagined. It's imagination and creating a concrete, we create with our imagination the story, the separate person with all this stuff. And yes, there is stuff happening in this ever-changing world, but we are that in which the ever-changing is happening. It's the space in the room. We're the space in the room.
It's funny, when you were asking me that question, I didn't want to answer because I wanted to stay where I was because I was fully present.
I didn't want to wake you up. Yeah, but you can talk from there. I know it gets a little bit, it's quite interesting because it's prior to language. It can be quite hard to talk from there when you're really deep because there's nothing coming because it's prior to language. So it's like you almost have to take one step away, although you never do. You've just got to step into the world of duality to be able to speak. But this is what comes with you. And that's the joy of knowing that you're never separate from this. This is who you are.
So if there is a heaven, what the religious people say, that's it. That's it. And it's within us.
I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Muji once says, if the kingdom of heaven is within you, then who are you really?
Yeah.
Like, wow. Thank you. So what's your worldview look like these days? I still feel like this sense of like
blissed out.
Yeah, blissed out. I never heard that term, and I'm gonna have to borrow that from you because that's how I feel. I feel it's like a natural high. Yeah,
that's how I feel pretty much all the time.
Wow.
Stuff still happens. I'm not saying my life is perfect. There's all sorts of stuff happening, but and stuff gets done. Just like that little girl that did that dance, it happened, and you just, there's no sense of a person doing it, but you're like, this is always what's happening. We just construct that idea of a separate person that's doing it and claiming it, but actually this is always doing everything because this is who we are. You see, it's so easy to get tricked by this idea of a separate person that's doing everything, but it's still like, okay, hang on a minute, who was thinking those thoughts? They're just appearing. Your thoughts just appear in awareness, in this that we are, this open sea of awareness that we've just tasted. Thoughts just appear. There's nobody thinking them. They just arrive and go. They're just conditioned. You're not thinking them. They're just arriving. And then you have the chance to pick them up or not. So it's just this, so my review is pretty much this. That life is happening. And I'm life. Not me, though, not the individual. Everybody, and everybody I see is the same. Yeah, same one life, appearing as many.
Yeah, Muji says, you're not life. You don't have a life. You're life itself.
Your life. Yeah,
And
beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, when those
those
things
nuggets of
land,
truth.
it's just delicious. And that's actually how I describe this. It's delicious.
I love that.
It's almost like you're swimming in a sea of deliciousness. It's just like, wow. And then you might get bliss. But the bliss comes and goes. It's almost like it's natural perfume, like happiness. So, but because you, from here, you feel whole and complete because you're not picking up that separate identity. You don't chase the bliss. You don't chase the happiness. It just blossoms, and then it goes, and then it blossoms, and then it goes. So, it can feel, sometimes it can feel quite normal, quite a bit flat. You think, oh, that's interesting. It's flat. And that's obviously sort of picking up the mind and describing it there. I think, oh, that's very interesting. And then bang, another bliss bomb. And you're like, ah. So the bliss comes and goes, but you don't mind, you don't chase it because it's, you already feel whole and complete, so you don't need to chase it.
So how do you look at religion these days? Is there a difference between religion and living on a spiritual basis?
It's hard to not pick up the mind. I suppose religion is somebody else's idea that you're following, whereas spirituality is finding your own truth, the truth of who you are, not following somebody else's truth. But I haven't really followed a religion. I'm sure some people follow religion and then find themselves that way. I'm not saying, I don't really know. So, I'm sure I think if it's a benefit and it's a comfort and it's positive. But I think it's when it becomes, you pick up the separation ticket and my religion's better than yours and I'm against you because you don't believe in my God. Yeah, that's when it all gets into the whole separation game. And that's when, unfortunately, we're even prepared to kill each other. And it is once you realize that everybody's the same, it is madness because you're killing yourself. We're all one. There is no separation.
And I think that's what, the saying, we're all God's children in Christianity, they would say. And I think if I look deeper than that, what that means is we're all related. We're all the same. We're all one. We all run from the same source of conscious awareness or whatever you want to use with the mind. But to know that we're all one is totally different than just saying it in here. And when you have that self-realization, you're just more at peace, more loving, and you're like in this unity state. And it's something you can't really explain, but it's experienced because that's who we all really are. Yeah.
But it's what we all are.
Yeah.
So it's
but
just,
we forget.
That's remembering. Yeah. Well, it feels like we forget because we can't lose it. And then we recognize it when we see it in other people, like I guess Jesus, people who sing that. I mean, he was pretty much talking about, that we're all one and God's children. And, I don't know that much about religion, but, he was very much revered and people were seeing themselves. That's what tends to happen. I had that with Muji. I was just like, oh, the first time I ever saw him, I just fell in love. I was like, who's this guy? I just love him. I don't know him, but I love him. And I was so drawn to his eyes and there was just this light in his eyes and I was just mesmerized. And I just dropped in, I physically felt I dropped out of my head and into my heart center and it just opened. I just looked at him and fell in love. And then when I went to see him live, I ended up rushing up to the stage. I didn't have that intention. It just happened. I was just running towards the stage at the end. And I just wanted to look in his eyes. And then the next day, he used to look at everybody at the beginning. It's called something, I'm not sure what it's called, but he looks at everybody's eyes. And he only had a few hundred people following him then. And so it's like I felt like I met him. Instead of me looking for myself, I knew I was looking for myself. My intuition said, you're looking for yourself in this man. So on the second day, we met in the middle of the room. Then on the third day, I couldn't see him because I was in a separate room. So I was like, what am I going to do? You know, my head was like, what am I going to do? Can't see him. I need to see him. And then I was like, but he's everywhere. And I just relaxed and just, it didn't matter. I couldn't see him. He's everywhere. You know, I just had that intuition that he's everywhere. And I think that's what we do. You know, we see it in other people. We're looking for ourselves. And that's because they're mirroring who we are. Because we are that we're seeking in them. We already are that. So it's the turning around to realize that.
Yeah, I love how you say they're just a mirror of who we really are. And I believe that's, for me, that's what the whole purpose of Jesus was, to show us who we really are, because we have forgotten, caught up in the world we live in. And it's not about needing to be saved, but needing to remember our true essence. And when you remember who you really are, and you're not the mind and you're not the body that's been conditioned by the world, you know, that's it.
And then you can walk in that body mind. You can play that game, but you're just awake playing it. So you're not looking through. I'm not saying I don't have things on this filter. You know, I'm not saying there's areas of separation that's still going to be offered up. But you play it as that true expression, like I said earlier. You know, you embody it. You embody this natural self, true expression, and then you walk in the world as that. So you don't see people as separate, and life just moves through you. You know, you do things that you would never have done, like have a YouTube channel, and all sorts of things seem to unfold, and you can see it's very different to how you would have done something before. It's just interesting. I find life interesting now. I just find it all so interesting. You know, we're all innocently buying those tickets and playing the game.
Yeah, that word namaste it comes to life for me, because I could see we're all life. Instead of looking beyond the spacesuits that we're wearing, you could see that we're all one life. And it's you live differently. You're totally different. Like you said, we're still playing the game. You know, I still get a little bit angry, but I don't get drowned in my anger anymore like I used to, or my thoughts. You know, and when I do experience a little turbulence, I go back to the pause. You know, sometimes I just take a shower if it's really deep in me. I take a shower and I just pause and let the water hit me, because water is life. You know. And,
yeah, beautiful.
So that's been. Thank you for coming on. Do you have any last words, or if you have one message to give to the world with all the chaos, all the suffering, all the war, all the conscious separation, what would you give any advice to us so we can live more in harmony with one another, in love versus fear?
I think when we see separation being played out to extremes, you know, where people are killing other people, I think it's so easy to go, they shouldn't be doing that. That's awful, you know. So you add more hate to the world, because yes, it is awful what is happening, but it's just to maybe have, you know, to look at the person that's maybe been killed. It's to have compassion for that life that's lost, and I mean, really, life isn't lost from here. We are all life, and life just keeps. But for the families of that child that maybe was killed, it's to have compassion. So you're adding more compassion to the world instead of more hate. So you look at the compassion for the child. I mean, compassion for the conditioning. You know, the person that's the perpetrator. They are so extremely feel that they're so separate that they would kill another being because they feel so separate. You know, even to have compassion for that person who feels that separate and that alone and that lost and identified with, that it's so extreme that it's got to kill others that don't think the way I think. You know, and a lot of it is just conditioning. So it's more compassion in the world instead of adding more hatred, I would offer.
I love that, because the more we practice this understanding, the more we can become aware. And the more we become aware, the more we can love and be a part of the solution, which is love versus hate and anger, because sharing hate and anger is like sharing the same type of disease. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate your channel. I will list that when I upload this video. And thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed myself. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Namaste.
And you.